So what are the realities of living off-grid with a family of 6 on a floating home?
Let's dive a bit deeper.
We are a family of 6 who call the ocean our home. We feel incredibly blessed to do this life together, and we've now sailed halfway around the world, crossing oceans, exploring cultures, finding waves, all while raising a family and leaning into the highs and lows of life at sea. The adventure is far from over as we continue our mission to circumnavigate this globe. So jump on board, have a laugh, and let's see where this journey takes us.
Welcome to this different episode. I've brought along a stranger. He's here to show you how we live off-grid as a family of 6.
We'll start with survival.
So, what are the 3 things we need to survive?
Well, in any survival situation, there's 3 things that are needed. 1, shade. 2, water. 3, food, Shona.
I didn't know Bear Grylls was visiting today.
It is.
At base level.
At base level.
Pretty real.
It is that, isn't it?
Especially out here. So
Shade, water, food. So at its simplest level, that is what we're looking at doing from an off-grid perspective. And so when we talk about shade, we're talking about what is the substructure of the vessel. We've got an outdoor area, which is amazing. We've got indoor, and we have a shade. And you might go, gee, that's a wee bit soft. It's not if you're spending time around the equator.
yeah, it's so hot here. So any extra shade you can create cools the boat down a little bit more.
And it makes living just a lot more friendly.
Yes.
The elbow creases, stop sweating, and stuff like that. And to be honest though, hydration is real. So shade and water, when you are around that equatorial type waters, is pretty significant. So shade is a big one. One thing that is a wee bit of a plus for Happy Days, thank you to prior owners, is there's insulation in the cabin roof.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Which is pretty significant.
It has made a difference. We've been on other people's boats that don't have it, and it's quite significant, the difference. Okay,
number 2, water. Definitely real, okay? In as much as you don't drink, you die. Right? That's a bit intense, but it's true. Whenever we go to sea, there's 2 things as captain that are on my radar the most. 1 is ensuring that we have sufficient water, and 2 is steering. Without those 2 things, it can make an ocean passage not so great.
A floating boat's important too.
Yeah, that's 3. Okay, so with water, we have 2 450 litre tanks totaling 900 litres that we carry on board.
Yeah, how fast do you reckon we go through that?
We use about 24 to 26 litres per day per person. So there's 6 of us on board. It's around about 150 litres a day.
That's for drinking water, that's showers. Sometimes we're having extra showers because we'll rinse off if we get out of the salt water at the back.
Definitely.
And then we've got dishes and water for cooking things like rice, boiling the kettle, that sort of thing. So we've met sailors that are way saltier and get by with, they can make 60 litres last like 6 weeks or something ridiculous.
We're pretty low on the salty scale. So we do, we don't indulge, but we do like
like to have fresh water. Oh, washing's another big thing that I use it for. Yeah,
it is.
From a survival point of view, drinking it is the most important, but from comforts and luxuries, water definitely plays a big part.
So where does our water come from? We said earlier we have 900 litres of tanks where the water lives. We have an Osmosea CL200 Watermaker, which has made thousands and thousands of litres for us as a family.
Yes.
And I feel truly indebted to the machine and Osmosea as a company as a whole. It makes 200 litres of water per hour. So this is a desalination unit or a water maker.
Those who don't quite understand the technology, it basically pushes the salt water through one end and fresh water comes out the other end, and really salty water shoots off back into the ocean. It's a vital piece of our survival out here, which helps us to remain off-grid longer.
Like always.
If you didn't have a desal unit on your boat, you would
You're
need
be
to
going
go
back to land.
to a dock or to land to find fresh water.
Yeah. The Watermaker, the CL200 by Osmosea, has not let us down. We've always been able to make water. We have been in some really remote places. I mean, mid-Pacific is about as remote as you can get.
Yes.
Albeit, I'd argue parts of Indonesia are just as remote.
Well, they feel remote, yeah, for sure.
For argument's sake, PNG and the list goes on. We've made water with that Watermaker in the Hudson River in New York to the far-flung reaches of wherever.
We needed a few more filters when we were there.
Yeah, we did go through a few filters in the Hudson, but it was, you can raise eyebrows, it's okay, but that's what we did.
We're still here.
Yeah. So, critical piece of kit as far as off-grid living on a vessel, for sure.
So 3 horsepower, 2.2 kilowatt, 230 volt. So motor, high pressure pump, hoses that run to the membrane that ultimately run into the tank. This display here is super simple. It's a start. It's a manual dial-up, which I like. Okay, you've got your inlet pressure that's coming from the ocean and your high pressure. We run at about 700 psi when we're making water. We run it through either our inverter or generator. We have the option, and that redundancy is awesome. Today, with the heat and the sun, we'll be running it off the inverter via the Battleborn lithiums and our 3.2 kilowatts of solar. So I'm going to switch it on here, and what we'll see is the feed pump. We'll push this feed pump that is down under in Bella's room. We'll start pushing the water for the first couple of seconds. That'll register here on the inlet pressure, and then that means the system has what it needs to be able to kick into the high pressure. Reasonably simple in a good way. So here we go, on button. There's that inlet pressure, and in a minute or a second, there's that high pressure. Makes a bit of noise, but it makes a lot of water. Keep in mind it's way up in our forepeak, so it doesn't really bother us. When you're in here, naturally it makes a bit of noise, that 3 horsepower motor. Next step is to wind up the pressure. Almost there. There's our 200 litres an hour, running at about 700 psi. So now that we're out of the hot box, the sauna that is the forepeak, definitely the hottest part of the whole boat. Sitting under the shade, in the breeze, it's lovely. And we now have what is called the product water, or the gold that is fresh water coming from the ocean, filling our tanks. Yes! That is how it works, and that's how it's worked every 2 to 3 days for a number of years now. The Osmosea CL200 keeps up with our family of 6, and it's a credit to it. So now we let it run its course using the sun, the solar, the Battleborn lithium, and we take in the view for a wee bit, and the washing. Right, the third is food.
Yeah, unfortunately this is one that continues to keep us tethered to land. If you wanted to go truly off-grid, I think it would be very difficult for our family to go truly off-grid.
Currently.
We couldn't really grow our own vegetables like a homesteading family might. We could catch fish, but we're not particularly good at it. It's not a strong suit.
Tell you what, if we weren't around fresh food, we'd figure it out. Like we do all right at spearing, but line fishing, we're very average.
Yeah. Yes, there's some ways that we can catch our own food. For the most part, we do have to rely on going to a store and buying food still.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or depending where we are, that's normally looks like a local market.
And then I'm sure if you've been watching our videos for a while, you've seen us provision. So the other thing is actually keeping stores on the boat so that we can go away from conveniences for a period of time.
Which I think overall, off-grid living on a vessel, it's almost a given that at some point you're going to need to resupply and restock.
Yes, yeah.
I'm unaware of any vessel out there that has the ability to be self-sustaining from a food perspective. So with that, it comes down to storage. The more people you have on board, the more you've got to actually think about how you're going to do that.
Yes.
So we have a baseline of what we call staples.
Pretty much put in big plastic tubs and put in the bilge for a lot of our bulk things like flour and rice and oats, and then other things that are more easily stored or are smaller go in and around the settee.
Let's talk fridges for a moment, because cold food is, when it comes to fresh stuff, it certainly helps. So we are running 2 fridges side by side, and an external or a freezer that is outside. It's sort of your
like a camp freezer,
quintessential,
something you would take if you were on a 4-wheel drive adventure.
Exactly right. And that does our family just fine.
In the freezer, that's another way of stocking up our food supplies.
Yes, frozen protein. Actually, we have a lot of frozen fruit. A lot of the time when we go to markets, the bananas, for argument's sake, are close to turning, or we get a big bunch. Anyway, there's lots of frozen fruit always in the freezer, which actually works really well for things like smoothies.
Especially when you are away and you are off grid and you do dwindle down on those fresh food supplies, to be able to pull some bananas out of the freezer and make a fresh smoothie. It's just like, oh.
One of Archie's favourite snacks is frozen pineapple. So, and it works because it's always there and it's always sort of available, which is amazing. Food does lead to a contentious or potentially contentious item, and that is rubbish or trash.
Yes, it's true.
Oh, mate. One of the things I'd love to change in the world is food packaging.
Yeah, and it's something that we struggle with. We haven't found a very good way to recycle, upcycle, deal with our rubbish. There are ways to do it, but it's quite a challenge. And each country you go to, you've got to figure out what's the best way to dispose of your rubbish. In most countries, we've found a bin near the dock, and that's what we've used. But in some countries, it's been really challenging. In Indonesia, we were having to burn our rubbish because that was really the only ethical way we could figure out how to dispose of it.
Yeah. And that kind of comes across as quite abrasive, I know. But we attempted to separate burnables from non-burnables, and we'd find an island with nobody on it, and we'd burn it.
And we'd burn the burnables,
And I know if you're based in New Zealand, Australia, America, Canada type thing, you're like, what? That's how they do it in these countries. So it's not completely out of control, but it kind of is. That's a work in progress, and it's something that's quite close to our hearts. And again, different countries have different food packaging. But what are we doing proactively? We always take our own bags.
Yeah, we're getting really good at that now, actually, taking our own shopping bags.
Always taking our own bags. And a lot of countries, particularly through Asia, go, what are you doing? It's just foreign to them.
They just automatically reach for a plastic bag to put your food in, and you're like, no, we don't need that.
But if you're off-grid for a long time and you're not around any sort of infrastructure, you don't want rubbish or trash piling up.
Yeah.
So you've got to be clever, you've got to be smart, and less is more. So whenever we go to the store, if we can see an opportunity to reduce what is the packaging, because we know at the other end we're going to have to do something with it.
Yeah, so rather than buying small jars of peanut butter, we might buy the bigger jars of peanut butter, just because you've got less packaging.
And if we can choose glass over plastic, all these things, paper over, so on and so forth, it's probably largely common sense these days.
It is, but it's also very tricky and difficult to navigate in new countries, especially countries that don't have the same values as you do around that.
So those are the 3 keys: shade, water, and food. We're now going to delve into, depending on where you sit, be it luxuries, necessities, comforts, or otherwise.
Creature comforts.
As far as a family of 6 living off-grid on a sailing vessel. Before we get into the discussion of necessities versus luxuries when living off-grid on a sailing vessel, There is often an unsung hero of what makes a vessel off-grid, and that is, for us, our Battleborn lithium batteries. Let's come and have a look. As I sit here contemplating the difference of lithium versus our old school days of AGM and gel batteries, it is significant. They are strong, they're powerful, they run anything and everything that we've thrown at it as a family of 6 so far. They haven't come up short once. They are plug and play, they really are. I've seen lithium battery banks with pretty extravagant external BMSs and a whole heap of technology. I'm not that clever, but the batteries are. And for that, super thankful. Now, you might notice that there are 4 blue boxes here. They are Victron multi-pluses. There's actually 2 230 volt multi-pluses and 2 110 volt multi-pluses. That is because Happy Days is quite unique in as much as it is running both 110 and 230 volt throughout the vessel. Thank you to the prior owner who lived stateside. Even with the added complication, if you will, of 230 volt and 110 system, the battery just takes it. We can switch between inverters, not a problem at all. The system, the batteries, they don't even bat an eyelid. Amazing. This is the backbone of any vessel. The batteries is where it happens. Anytime any one of us, kids, mum, dad, whenever we do anything, it all comes from here. Whether we're crossing an ocean, making a cup of tea, this is where it comes from. And without having a solid battery bank, it's like camping on water. And if you've been there, you know, it's not much fun. And so I never want to grow complacent of having such a solid backbone, particularly when we are remote and we are off grid. This is just gold. So let's talk specs. We have 900 amp hours of lithium. We have 3,200 watts of solar, which I'll show you in a tick. The beautiful thing about the Battleborn lithiums is that we can draw 100% of the capacity. In other words, all 900 watts can be drawn. In the old days when we were running AGMs and gels, that was only 50%. And so we've in effect more than doubled our battery capacity because we used to have 800 amp hours, right? It is more than enough for the 6 of us. It needs to be said. Could we have more? Yes, but we're human, right? So we're always like, more would be good. 900 amp hours is doing it for a family of 6. We wake up most mornings after making water and doing life and living off grid. Maybe they're about 30%. With the solar array that we have and the sun's out, by the end of the day, we've done what we've needed to. There's ample charge. We're back up to where we should be. Runs through the night, rinse and repeat. So solid, and 900 amp hours does get it done for a family of 6. Working remotely too, I might add, and doing school, and doing everything else that's involved with a family of 6 that you could never think or imagine. All comes from here. All right, let's go and have a quick look at the solar. Welcome. This is where it all happens up here as far as the power, where it comes from, it gets into the batteries. These soft panels came on when we were in Mexico. The hard ones came in Panama. They are gold. 1,600 watts here in hard panels, 1,600 watts here in soft panels or flexibles. The hard ones are definitely the way to go. They are far more effective. But on a day like today, we are doing extremely well. We'll bring in around that 2,000 watt mark peak, and that is sufficient for what we need. Brings in over 100 amp hours net, which is hard to throw stones at. So it's currently 10 o'clock. We've done a host of things already this morning. Batteries are at 44%. We've got 13.4 volts and we're bringing in 1,500 watts or thereabouts, or a net 86 amps. I know that we are using about 30 at the moment, so we're well and truly in front, and come just after lunch, we'll be back up in the 70s and 80s and probably 100% by the end of the day. Now that we've looked at where the power is actually coming from, let's take some time to delve into all the things that are powered to make a life off-grid possible. So, comforts. What is it that Happy Days, a Leopard 46, has from a comfort perspective? Straight off the bat, it has 4 bathrooms. So that, for a larger family, is pretty special.
It is.
The flip side of that is if it...
The cleaning.
Yeah, oh mate, it's
or
real.
the maintenance.
Yeah, it's real. 4 times everything.
Yeah.
But with a growing family, we have soon to be 3 teenagers on board and a very old 10-year-old, Pip. No, it's amazing to be able to provide the space for each of
to have
those.
their privacy.
Yeah, so we have 4.5, call it 5 cabins on board, and each cabin has its own ensuite in effect.
Yeah.
So that's bordering on luxurious, but not uncommon for a catamaran. It needs to be said. Our first vessel, a 51-foot mono, it actually had lots of showers and heads as well. But you know, so it can happen on a monohull. You know, when it comes to showering, we do spend a lot of time in salt water, and so our 5th shower, in effect, is actually used the most.
Yes. Yeah, we've got a hose off the back of the transom where we can pretty much shower out the back if we want to. So it's got a shower head on it, and
pretty much if we want to. Hang on, I think Archie is currently on a 1-year plus streak of showering outside.
He prefers it. He often has to make sure it's very dark before he takes his shower in case we've got neighbouring boats.
Yeah. But a lot of the time we are off grid and we're far away. It does become a real mission for him if we're in a marina. He's like,
can I do it? Maybe I'll wear my shorts this time.
Yeah, he's like, all right, board shorts standard. Anyway, that's true, that happens.
Yeah.
But whenever we come back from a surf or a dive, for argument's sake, we'll rinse off.
Have a freshwater rinse off.
So, and that's a hot outwater shower too, so that's pretty comfortable.
But we have to use our solar.
Okay, so let's talk about where does hot water come from? Because it's not like a house where it's just there. So
if you're thinking of going sailing and hot water is a priority, now's your time to listen.
Yeah. We have 2 water heaters, one in either hull. The way that water cylinder, in effect, or that water heater is heated is by either running an engine or using power, 230-volt power, to heat that water heater so that you can then have a hot shower.
You can just toggle a little switch across and say heat the hot water. We generally put a timer on so that we don't forget and leave it on and it gets too hot and overheats.
20 minutes is what it takes to get enough hot water in one of those hot water heaters for the whole family.
Yeah.
Some people would be going, you guys are nuts, we just leave ours on all the time. Well, good on you. Other people would be like, you bunch of nanas.
We do it that way because we keep a close eye on how much power we're using.
Well, yeah, we don't want to just be inefficient with our power use. You know, if we're out here, we're off grid, you've got to be wise.
Yes.
And that doesn't matter whether it's hot water or making water or whatever the draw is.
Power you're using, you've got to just be keeping such a close eye on it.
Yep. Okay, so showers, hot water, that's pretty comfortable. All right,
we should probably talk about the toilets and how do toilets work off grid and how do toilets work on a boat. Ultimately, we go to the bathroom, flush the toilet.
With salt water?
With salt water. Some boats have a freshwater flush.
Ours is salt water.
Ours is salt water. And then it goes into a tank. And then every couple of days we would need to empty them. I think it's every couple of days, depending on how often we've been to the bathroom.
Every 2 days.
And to empty it, it's literally like
it goes into the ocean.
Opening a lever, it goes into the ocean.
Yep.
So
that's how it works.
How we deal with our black water.
Yep.
It's kind of gross.
Yeah, no, but if you don't poo, you die. So, you know. Let's talk about things like internet, Starlink, and I'll throw air conditioning in there and cooking. Those are the next 3 that we're going to talk on. Internet, it's almost in this day and age, Starlink is not a staple, but there's probably more boats with Starlink at the moment than there is without. Our Starlink runs off 230 volt, which means it needs to run off an inverter. Our vessel as a whole has a 12 volt electrical system. Okay, you can do some jimmy arounds to get Starlink from 110 or 230 right down to 12 or 48. We haven't done any of that. We do, however, switch ours off every night.
Yes.
All our 230 volt goes off, and that would be different to how other people do it. Why? Because we don't want to be connected to the world all the time. And again, we are not wanting to draw unnecessarily throughout the night if we're not using it.
Yeah.
So
when you're sleeping, you don't need all of those Wi-Fi's floating around.
yeah, no, you know. We got mozzies and stuff to contend with. We don't need Wi-Fi's floating around as well. We do have a larger, the large option of the Starlink dish, and it most definitely draws more. I'm going to guess it's around the 20 amp mark when it's up and running, crudely. So keep that in mind if you're thinking of going from the small one to the big one. It's definitely more hungry than the initial one. Aircon, oh, that is definitely getting into the luxury side of things.
Certainly is.
We have 3 AC units on board. We've got 2 12,000 BTU units in each of the hulls, or one in each hull. And we've got a 16,000 BTU unit in the saloon, which we're in at the moment. So that's a fair bit of AC. And we could probably count the amount of times on one hand that we run it in a year.
I think there's plenty of times we want to run it, but then we just, you know, you go for a swim off the back or jump in the dinghy and you're going fast and you cool off.
Yeah.
But if we actually really wanted to, like if we were struggling to sleep at night, we would use it.
We can.
Yeah.
And sometimes that does give you a wee bit of sleep at night factor when it's, say, brutally hot or uncomfortable and you're like, well, we could switch it on if we needed to. Normally that's enough to be like, we'll be right. Right? It's kind of how it works. But there is actually some merit to, you know, keeping it working. So we do turn it over probably once a month to make sure that, you know, the pump's working and we're keeping it wet.
Yeah, that it doesn't get all seized up.
Yeah, exactly. That it is ultimately taking seawater, salt water through it. So whenever you got salt water and moving parts, it needs to be moved often.
On the other hand, though, we kind of look at air conditioning as not off-grid. Like,
no, you don't need that.
It's something that we would use if we were plugged into a marina and there was no apparent breeze and there was no fresh air option.
Largely like how we are right now at the moment, we have all of our hatches open, we have our shade up. It is middle of the day. I'm going to guess it's somewhere between 32 and 35 degrees Celsius. And I would normally have no shirt on, but otherwise we're comfortable, right? And until recently, to run an AC means we would have needed to run the generator. And I think that's unfair to a generator. You can say that's ridiculous. But if you're running an AC because it's hot, but then you're prepared to ask your generator to run in really hot conditions, I go, no. I know it's water cooled. I know, but anyway, I struggle with that a wee bit. So we don't have to run the generator anymore. We'll get to that soon. We could just run the AC off our batteries, which is pretty amazing. Cooking, that's a big one. When we talk about food, every day we cook.
Because you're not near the shops where you can go and get fresh vegetables every day, you can't just make a big salad every day.
All the time.
Even though that would be amazing. So generally there's a part of your meal that you do need to cook. So for us, we are using the barbecue and the stovetop. We have an oven, but in hot places, we don't even bother using the oven. It's way too hot.
We have a secret weapon.
And we have
a
secret weapon.
By the way, we have sailed to places where it's been nice to have the oven on. We've been like, oh, it's warm. Canada,
yeah.
right?
And New Zealand.
And New Zealand, yeah, New Zealand we couldn't get hot, warm enough. So depending on where you're watching this will depend on how ridiculous this may sound. But when it's hot, we try and cook outside. So
we actually got like a camp butane burner, a single burner, and sometimes we will go and cook our rice outside because it's just like
keeps inside cooler, and it's a game changer when you're already like sweaty, and then you're like, I'm just gonna switch something on the stove. You're like, can we not? Like it raises the ambient temperature by like 2 or 3 degrees. Anyway, if you know. Get a butane cooker and do it outside. You're welcome.
For cooking, we have the Thermomix.
We do.
And an electric kettle. The other stuff runs off propane, and both of those run off power.
We use both.
And so we kind of alternate. We have our propane kettle out. If the batteries are low-ish in the morning, we'll use that. If the batteries are looking really good, then we'll switch on the electric kettle.
We just like to have both options. We're not full induction, and to be honest, if we were to go full induction, I believe we'd need more solar and more battery capacity. Normally, other than Indo, cooking gases, you can find it in countries. So we are carrying around 2 8 and I think it's 1 4 kilogram bottles. So we've got 20 kilograms of gas on board, which should last a long time, but
I think one bottle generally lasts around 6 weeks, and that's cooking a loaf of sourdough every day.
Every day a loaf of sourdough goes on that barbecue for 20 to 30 minutes. And let's be honest, we like stuff cooked on the flame. We just do, and that's what we get from
also, that
barbecue.
takes the heat outside as well.
It does.
Yeah.
Let's talk for a moment about maintenance and even things like haircuts and things, again, that when you're off grid, you can't just duck into the hair salon for argument's sake, or you can't duck into a chandlery or that store or this store or whatever it might be. What that equals is a lot of stuff that you carry.
Tool shed.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
We have a tool shed and it has a whole host of different things, from tools to spare parts to sticky this and fix that and stainless and hose clamps and zip ties.
Have we got enough tape?
Yeah,
Have we got enough silicone? Have we got enough epoxy putty?
Yeah, epoxy putty, definitely. Every time you see epoxy putty, buy more. And that goes right the way down to things like fiberglass and resin, your cleaning products, your sandpaper, your electric tools. That's a big one, actually. Your electric power tools, to be able to charge those off your inverter so that they're ready to use at any time, is real. Is definitely real. Just from a general life perspective, we're working on board the vessel remotely every day.
Yes.
We have, just because there's 6 of us, everybody is on a device doing either school or work. Whether that's a MacBook or whether that's an iPad or a phone, we are charging, I don't know how many devices, a lot of devices.
So that's a big strain on the power as well. But
I wouldn't call it a strain, but it's something that is almost like a given, and we don't even consider it. Let's be honest.
That's true.
We just have stuff plugged in.
We do. Yeah.
So, as far as being off grid, you've got to be able to power it. You've got to be able to fix it, and you've got to be able to have the things that you need to fix it. You need to be able to power those things to fix the thing that you need to fix. All right? Good.
Off-grid living.
That's kind of how it works. And if you don't know how to do it, then you've got to have power to power the thing, so you can get on Starlink to go on YouTube, figure out how you do fix it, and then go and power the thing. It's a cycle, right?
Yeah.
But it works. Also, when it comes to spare parts, we're a big believer in backing good gear with the right spare parts. So take Osmosea and the Watermaker. Their customer service is amazing. Their spare parts can be sent anywhere around the world. So we carry a host of critical spares, and at times, say a fitting is gone, for argument's sake, or a high pressure pump, whatever it might be, we've been in a position to be able to substitute that spare and continue to make water. So figuring out what components are mission critical, ensure that you have what I'd call reputable gear in that space, and carry the spares that you need for them, as opposed to having redundancy of that particular piece. Back the good piece of kit, get the spares that you need. Where we are at the moment, we have sun most days, we're close to the equator.
Yeah.
We don't have to use our generator, which we still have.
Yeah, but we still try and run it to
About
make
once
sure
a week.
we're looking after it. But we don't have to use it.
Yes.
Which is so good.
In effect, redundancy.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
If we have cloudy days, which you do, by the way,
Yeah.
you're going to get cloudy days, so you're going to have some sort of redundancy
only a
to
week
charge your
ago,
batteries.
I think we had like 3 or 4 rainy days in a row, and we did end up needing to use a generator.
Absolutely.
So solar and lithium batteries are amazing.
You need another option.
The weather. If you can't use your solar for whatever reason.
So that could either be having larger alternators or some sort of charging coming off your drive engines. or a wind generator, albeit feel like it's a wee bit like a fax machine. That might rile some people, but the technology just doesn't seem to be super effective or efficient as far as it generating power. I'd be investing that money into more solar. Even on a cloudy day, you're probably going to go as well, if not better. Or a generator.
Which is why we've chosen to keep our generator.
Yeah, it has. So we have a Northern Lights 9 kVA generator. The great thing about it is on a cloudy day, we can both charge our batteries through the multiplasters and make water at the same time. That is gold, because we are bringing charge into the batteries and making water, which is our largest draw, okay?
Of our whole boat.
Of our whole boat.
Yeah.
So that is a win. It's still there. The question that I pose is, would we replace the generator in the event of needing to? Probably not.
I think we'd probably get more lithium and solar.
We would.
Yeah.
We would. And I'd probably look at investing that money elsewhere into maybe larger alternators on the drive.
I still think that I would want to carry like maybe a small like Honda generator like we used to have on Toria.
They make a
Just
racket.
as redundancy, like I don't know.
Something. Let's talk for a moment about how we get to and from shore, because that's really important.
Yeah, so on land you would have a car. Out here we have our dinghy, and you guys have seen us use it all the time. From stacking it up with loads of surfboards and getting out to the surf break to
Groceries.
Loads of groceries.
Diesel, locals.
Diving. No matter what we need to do, if we have to leave the boat,
We're going the dinghy.
It's the dinghy.
So what do we have?
The whole family.
It's a Highfield 360 Classic, powered by a 30 horsepower 2-stroke Yamaha Enduro. That's our current setup.
Yes.
And that pushes the 6 of us along nicely. And one of the keys is the weight of the tender. It's an aluminium hull, Hypalon tubes, as far as the Highfield is concerned. And it weighs a lot less than our previous tender.
It does.
Which means that your horsepower goes a lot further, because we're putting 6 people in every time just about, and they're growing and getting bigger. We did have the Yamaha 25 horsepower 4-stroke. We ultimately had a race with another 25 horsepower 2-stroke Yamaha when we were in the Mentawais, and it absolutely licked us. So we went, right, we're getting a 2-stroke. Not quite, but that did happen. And so we made a move from the 25 horsepower 4-stroke. I know that the 2-strokes aren't available in all countries, but they are in Asia. And the power difference is substantial.
Yeah.
Substantial.
And that was the main reason we were going for that. We know that there's an environmental issue around how much fuel, maybe it uses more fuel.
Right.
But we've actually found it's just about the same.
You would be plus or minus 10%. So,
and from a maintenance point of view, a 2-stroke is way easier to diagnose any issues than a 4-stroke. So
it's not as refined as a 4-stroke. It makes a racket and all those things,
loud.
but it goes, and it goes well. So really, quite thankful for that, because with the 25 horsepower 4-stroke, admittedly a few horses may have left. If we were loaded up with groceries with all 6 of us in, we'd be struggle street if there was any sort of chop. So, as a wrap, we have had the privilege of sailing over halfway around the world over the last few years with a growing family. There's high highs and there's low lows, but nonetheless, living off grid on a floating home as a family of 6 is real, and it works.
Yeah, we enjoy it. We know it's not for everybody. We know that there's some luxuries that people consider necessary for their survival. But for us, we love it.
We do. And we've met some all shapes and sizes. The same as living on land. People can live in something small and then there's opulent at the other end. Living a life at sea has those same principles, and it really depends on who you are as a person. Because largely, it's the people that make the boat and not the boat that makes the people. boating home with 6 people in a family. Nah, I missed that one. I'll go again. Here it comes. Ready? And what is just plain survival?